Hello, everyone. Welcome. This is SharePoint Power Hour, and I am Laura Rogers. I wanted to let you know today that we don't have any guests. Corey and Joelle are not here. Joelle is, they're usually here joining me in the video, but Joelle is on a cruise with her boyfriend, which sounds like a lot of fun, and Corey is also on some sort of vacation. But I'm Laura Rogers. I'm a SharePoint MVP, and this is SharePoint Power Hour. This is a show that I do every Wednesday at 11 Central live. And of course, all the episodes are also on my YouTube channel, Wonder Laura, that they just stream live, and they are all out there for you to watch anytime. So I've got a green screen. I've been playing with all this kind of fun stuff lately. First of all, I want to make sure that you can all hear me, because usually when I've got other people in here with me, they can let me know if, the audio cuts out or something like that. So we've got our little Slack channel that we're using. So for those of you in the Slack channel, I put a link out there to our little Slack channel, where we have a little hashtag Power Hour on the left side, where we, oh good, thank you, Tony, perfect. So now I know. All right, so little bit of information before we get started with today's demo, which is Microsoft Flow. I created a Slack channel, and this is going to be just a fun way that we can interact and have discussions as we go, just during Power Hour. So we basically used to use Google Hangouts and used to use the little Q&A that was built into Google Hangouts. And that was it wasn't very interactive. It wasn't as much like a discussion. So I wanted to try out Slack. So the way it works is that I put the little link to request to be part of the channel in the description of the YouTube video. And so you fill out the form, which sends me an email, which sends me a little message, which prompts me to invite you. So Slack is something you have to get invited to. So like if it's during Power, I'm in the middle of talking, then you're not necessarily going to get an invite, because I'm in the middle of talking, so I have to manually do that. But I actually have, let's see, our demo today is going to be Microsoft Flow, which is this new thing that came out. Like somebody just filled out, Michael Gennady, I've got to let him in. Anyway, Microsoft Flow is just this new thing that has come out just in the past couple of weeks. It was sort of in conjunction with Power Apps. It used to be sort of built in like it was the same thing, but now it's got its own website, and it's got its own deal. So it's microsoftflow.com. So while we're going through the demos today, you guys can feel free to follow along. And let's see, I actually have Merwan Haid from Microsoft is on the product team, and I've got to make sure and put him in here too. So Michael Gennady, since everybody at Microsoft knows each other, right? So if you, happen to see him in the office, let him know that when he gets this invite, that's what it is, because he did let me know that he was interested in being part of the discussion. So I went ahead and sent him an invite and let Michael Gennady in. All right, so to no further ado, I've got a PDF file that Merwan shared with me. So what I've been doing is, I'm a Microsoft MVP. So we get to talk closely with the product teams a lot of the time and give them feedback on products, especially when we have exciting new products. So this is a preview product. So I've been, going back and forth and kind of giving him feedback and testing it and things like that. So just kind of keep in mind as we try it out that it's a preview. So, if you find something that's strange or buggy, don't be harsh. Just, it's feedback that they need to know for improving the product. All right, so let me see. I'm going to share my screen. And again, in the chat window, you guys feel free to kind of, have discussions and ask questions, and you can do little silly things like add reactions to each other's comments and things like that. Like if you hover over somebody's name, it lets you add a reaction. So that's kind of fun. All right. I'm trying to get Slack to show up on this other screen I have here. just so I can kind of keep it in kind of in the background going when I'm sharing my screen. Okay, let's see. So everybody say hi. Hi all. All right. And welcome. Okay. Now, so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and share this PDF file that I have. So I'll go ahead and flip over to that, and then we're just going to talk about some introductory stuff about what the heck Microsoft Flow is and just the basics of it, and then we'll dig in and do some demos and just have discussions and ask questions and things like that. So I'm going to flip over to this. So hopefully you guys can see my screen now. I guess let me know if you can't in Slack. All right, so we have Microsoft Flow. Basically, the idea behind Microsoft Flow and I'm going to be comparing it to SharePoint Designer a lot. I can't help it, you know, automating business processes. I'm going to be comparing it to SharePoint Designer, but it's really a completely different animal. It has a lot more to do with integrating multiple systems than it has to do with just SharePoint. So it's something that you could use across the board to integrate with all kinds of different systems and services that that you might be a member of. Think about all the different databases and, you know, Salesforce and CRM and all these different things that you use every day, and being able to build automations and integrations between them. So as you can see, I pulled the little image that they had and put it as my cute little background. But it's basically, it gives you the ability to, you know, do things like, you know, some basic stuff like you've done in SharePoint Designer workflows before, like emails, notifications, moving files back and forth, collecting information. There's even some approval stuff. And then they've even got templates. So this is kind of one of the things that, you know, SharePoint Designer workflows don't necessarily have as much of. I mean, of course, there are a couple of different, there are a couple of out-of-the-box workflows that have some stuff that's canned in them, but this is cool because it's got a whole bunch of templates that you can just pick one and start with, and then just customize it as much as you want. And they are encouraging the community to submit templates, I believe. Has anybody in here ever gone to the website called If This Then That? It's ifttt.com. Has anybody ever played with that? That's a lot of fun. I've created some automations, not really necessarily having to do with SharePoint, but having to do with like home automations and just other fun stuff like that. Like I have these Philips Hue lights in my house, and say, you know, when I pull in the driveway, the lights go on, you know, it automates just silly stuff like that. Or when I'm going to go ahead and turn off Slack. Oh, hey, Marwan, I'm glad you can make it. I'm going to turn off Slack so it doesn't keep popping up in my screen share, but while I talk. But I've got it over here on my other computer. So everybody say hello to him. Hopefully I'm pronouncing your name correctly. But he just said hello in the Slack chat room, and he is on the product team for Flow. So this is very exciting. All right, so you have templates you can start with so you can get ideas of some things that you'll be able to automate across different systems, or you can just start from scratch, of course. But again, if you've seen the If This Then That, or there are a couple of other different websites like that that let you automate across multiple systems, just tapping into their APIs. It might look a little familiar because it's got kind of a lot of the same idea going, which is a lot of fun. And If This Then That also has Microsoft, has Office 365 integrations in it as well. All right, so it's got all the templates here. You can build your own flows in an easy-to-use visual designer. So this is a completely different interface than you might be used to from other SharePoint workflows. It's got a very user-friendly interface where you pick what your actions and conditions are going to be, and you say, you know, when this happens, what do I want to do? So the condition can be in a completely different service than the action. For example, I've created one just personally where if I put an email in a certain folder in my Office 365 Outlook, it automatically adds that person to my MailChimp account as a subscriber to my Power Hour newsletter. So, you know, just again, let your mind expand to all like the different systems you might use throughout the day and things that you do. and think about things that this would make your life a lot easier. So hopefully, guys, as I'm talking, you can maybe go to microsoftflow.com, try it out, and start shouting out ideas too in the discussion, so that we can, that might also be things that I can try and demo. So that's the fun about having a live discussion, is that you can give me ideas of things to try and demo while we're here. All right, so here's an example of one where when a file gets created in Dropbox, it sends an email using your Office 365 email accounts to let you know. And whenever you are creating your actions and conditions, it gives you fields to pick from, as you can see, from whatever service that is. Like, for example, the Dropbox was the first thing I picked. So when I'm sending the email, it lets me pick fields from Dropbox to be able to insert into the email. So that's a familiar concept to what you've seen in SharePoint. And of course, this isn't necessarily a SharePoint product, but of course I'm a SharePoint person. So that's kind of what I'm using as my point of reference for a lot of my examples. But this is not a SharePoint specific thing. This is all Microsoft and all different types of integrations. And you just have to have an Office 365 account to be able to log in. And Merwan, correct me if I, say anything incorrect, or, feel free. If that's, if I'm saying that you need to have an Office 365 account, or if I say something like that that's not true, just let everybody know. All right, so here's an example right here with Salesforce. And oh, what is that little blue icon? I'm not sure off the top of my head what that is. That's another service though. All right, so integrate the systems you're already using, even custom APIs. So if you're a developer, is anybody in here a dev? If anybody's a developer, not only is there one in here that lets you tap into a web service. So there's an action called HTTP, which lets you just put your own reference to whatever web service you want directly in there. And so not only does that exist, but if you're a dev, you could always use custom APIs to create your own custom types of actions in here. And I'm not a dev, so that was my translation of how that works. All right, so everybody, you can go to flow.microsoft.com or microsoftflow.com. All right, so that's the end of the slides. Whoa, I'm gonna go ahead and pull up my demo stuff. I've got, I'm logged into my little demo site as Sarah Davis, and I'm gonna go ahead and go to Microsoft Flow. And I'll show you, I did start creating a few of them. So it'll prompt you to log in. So I think that it's got a lot of information you can read. I think that I'm probably already logged in. No, so I gotta log in as this little demo user. Sorry about that, Sarah D. All right, sign in, Sarah D. All right. I love these little demo environments. If you're a Microsoft partner, you can go to Microsoft Office Demos.com and just get one of those little demo tenants that's just got all kinds of fun, just fake content in there. All right. Oh, and you could, so he's saying you could have a dynamic CRM account as well to be able to log into this, I believe. All right, so here is one example. I was up late last night playing with this. But here's one example. First of all, I'll go ahead and just show you an example of one that I created. And then I'll show you, just kind of go through creating them and kind of what the steps are and what your options are. So I go to My Flows, and then that will prompt you to create a new one, or it had a list of ones that I had already created. So for this one, I just said every day. So this particular thing, this is something that's always been really frustrating in SharePoint. Do you guys agree? Like, shout out in the chat window if you agree that just something simple like something happening every day, or on a certain time frame in SharePoint workflows has been painful, has always been painful. So the fact that you can just create some kind of workflow in here to just run every day is huge. People have been trying to do that in SharePoint Designer workflows. You can kind of do it with information management policies, but that's kind of funky sometimes. So I love this recurrence where I want this to happen every day. I want a task to get created every day in this SharePoint list called sales tasks, because I want the sales guys to remember that they have to call their sales leads every day. So I want to create this new task every day for them. So what I did was I went to my site here. So I've got my sales and marketing site in SharePoint, and it's going to have a task list in it. And let's see, I'll just go view all site content real quick. Yes, I agree, Mike. Yeah, it totally has been something that's been just ridiculous how frustrating it's been in SharePoint to do something on a schedule, right? Okay, so here's the task list, and you can see that I tested one and was able to create one when I did this last night. There are a couple different, some different fields and things that they're still that still aren't necessarily in Flow yet that they're working on. So, for example, there's no people field to be able to put a person in there. Same with Power Apps. There's no people field, and then the due date. I don't see a dynamic way of doing a due date, but I'll just go through what it does do. I'm going to try and focus on what it does do, because again, it's a preview product. So of course they're continuously improving this. Every time you go into it, you might see little things that are fixed or improved or added. So it's awesome. All right. So I put the URL to my SharePoint site, and then I put my list name. Now in this preview product, if you do the drop down, I found that when it's sort of a deeper level site, when I do the drop down, it doesn't necessarily show the items. But if you're trying this out and you're in this preview and you don't see the names of your lists, you can just type the name of your SharePoint list. So I just put the URL to the site and I just typed sales tasks right here because I didn't see it in the drop down. So I'm going to say, what do I want the task name to be called? And I can give it a name, and then give it a due date. I could say, just type a date in here. Priority. So notice that since I picked a task list, basically it ends up talking to the task list and pulling in all these fields from the task list for me to fill in, just to say, what the values of the fields need to be. So this is going to happen every day, and I set it to run. Let me see if I have any extra details. There was some extra detail here. Look at this. When you see this little ellipses here, at the bottom of any of your actions and conditions, you're going to see extra information about extra things that you can do. So I can pick a time zone and I can pick a particular start time. Now, of course, since this is running on an interval, it's not something that I can just trigger manually and run it and show you, but you can see that it did go and it did create that task for me in the SharePoint list. All right, so yeah, so open the task and I can see it. And so that has to be done by, a salesperson every day, and that's just going to get generated every day. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and close this flow. I'm just going to go back to my flows here, and I can say create a new one. And then do I want to, what do I want to start with? So first of all, let me go over here to, I think, yeah, see, browse is where you can start with a template. So you guys, what do you think? Do you think these are really awesome, great ways to give you ideas of things that you can do? And what kind of ideas are you getting? So there have always been, there are things that SharePoint Designers still does better than Flow, but there are already some things that Flow is addressing in here that you can't necessarily do with SharePoint Designer. For example, cross-site. Anything across sites. So you can have something that happens in one SharePoint site trigger something to happen in a completely different SharePoint site. As long as when you created the flow, you've authenticated to both of those. So it's using your authentication to run your flow. So you can do things across site, which is huge. All right, so you can see a lot of examples. They're using a lot of different services, like if a keyword contains a certain, a tweet contains a certain keyword, send yourself an email, save new email attachments to your OneDrive for Business. That's a good idea. And it would just automatically do that. And then we got things across Twitter, Yammer, Dropbox, even Slack. So I might start, if you start seeing some things in Slack appearing in there, it's probably because I was playing with the Slack integrations. So get Office 365 email notifications forwarded to Slack. You got Dropbox, again, Yammer, SQL, look at that. So I can I can actually tap into my own SQL database. I need to have my SQL connection string and need to be able to authenticate to that SQL database. But I think about it, these are things that people want to do in SharePoint all the time. That's always been really complicated, and you've needed to have a developer to do it. Is Potterful says TFS on-prem? Probably not. But think about, like, an example in SharePoint is just moving things. When things have been in SharePoint for a while, a lot of times you want to just either take a whole list or take items and archive them off of SharePoint. Think about like your really large lists and things. A lot of times customers will say, this list has 20,000 items in it. We really don't need all these items in it to reference them all the time. We could just back it up somewhere else because it's just you could just be archived information. So that can be something where you can use sending SharePoint information over to SQL and create a row in a table. You've got, let's see, what is that? Oh, that's Dynamics. Okay, that's what you were answering. That's the question you were answering in there. Oh, TFS on-prem as well, he said. Awesome. All right. So he said, Merlin said, we're adding support for on-prem services like SharePoint, TFS, and various ERP services later this year. Awesome. Yeah, it's good to know. All right, so we got Dynamics notes. When a new list item is added in SharePoint, add to Dynamics. So this is another one. So think about just me specifically. We had, where I used to work, we had Salesforce. So this is one of those things that we really, really needed to do because it was very awkward because we had the sales guys doing their thing in Salesforce, doing their leads and, creating whatever they create in there because that's their world. That's what sales guys do, right? And then all the rest of us didn't necessarily have Salesforce accounts because Salesforce accounts are, they're pretty expensive. So the company doesn't necessarily give Salesforce accounts to every single person in the company maybe. But look what you can do. You can have somebody who does have a Salesforce account create a flow that says, when a new something is added in Salesforce, go create the item in SharePoint. This is huge. This is so easy. So just that alone, I mean, that is awesome. So then you could even have then once it arrives in SharePoint, then you can do alerts. You can do SharePoint Designer workflows. You can do more of these Microsoft, more flow actions in there. But getting information from Salesforce to SharePoint is huge. All right, you've even got integration with MailChimp, Microsoft Project. Of course, I'm going to go into the interface of creating a flow, but I think this is a great the screen is a great little example of all the ideas of things that you can do and all these templates you can start with. So Azure Service Bus, I don't even know what that is. That sounds kind of devy, but you could do, create Azure Service Bus based on something, emails that you get in your Outlook email, in your Office 365 email. It also has Outlook.com email integration. So I guess I could just, even if I just have an Outlook.com account and I don't have an Office 365 account, would I be able to use this? Or do you have to, is it all based on having an Office 365 account? I guess we'll find out. All right, so then here's another one, FTP. So any kind of, look at that, any FTP server you have, this is huge. You could just authenticate to the FTP server and have things happening automatically. So this is something I've had multiple customers ask for in the past too. Like for example, they had some sort of system that generated reports, just some old kludgy reporting product that didn't integrate with anything, and it wasn't necessarily SSRS or just something old, and but it was spitting out reports that these people needed, and it was spitting them out to a file share every night, and they wanted to just somehow get them over into SharePoint. So think about that. You could use this. You could FTP into some server that's got the files you need, and pull them over into SharePoint or vice versa. It sounds like that's what you could do. So very cool. Every day post values from SQL row into a specified Slack channel. Ooh, that's very interesting. Yeah. Huh. I guess one thing you could do is maybe have if you're having maybe conversations about things that are going on in Salesforce, you could have things from Salesforce going into a Slack channel to be able to respond or have, I don't know, have a thread going on about that. I'm just kind of brainstorming here. But so what kind of ideas are you guys getting? Let's see. Yeah, so somebody's saying that 2013 integration where they needed to have a task run on the server every day. All right, so you can start with one of these, or you can go to My Flows and you can create a new flow. There's also information, there's documentation out here to be able to learn about this stuff. There's community, so there are forums, of course, where people are trying this out and asking questions already. And so if you don't see something that you're looking for in just the formal documentation, go scan, go look for it over in the forums and see if other people have been asking the same thing and see if you can find that answer. All right, so when I go to start a workflow, first it's asking me what I'm starting with. So what is the thing that's going to trigger this? Now notice there's the Power Apps integration. So I did a Power Apps SharePoint Power Hour a few months ago, probably 6 months ago. It's changed a lot. It's changed a lot since then, but you can make this so that your Power App, like a control, like a button is being clicked in your Power App, and that could trigger your flow. So that's how the two are integrated together. The Power Apps is just another trigger that can happen. Oh yeah, so he said the product team actively monitors the forums. So that's awesome. That's awesome that they're right on in there trying to get this product as good as they can and be able to answer your questions and be able to fill in the gaps whenever it's needed. All right, so I've got things, of course, happening on a recurrence. HTTP, that's going to be the one that is where you put in your web service information. See, I'm not going to go over every single one of these. I'm skipping over a few. Let me go ahead and here's what I like to do. I like to start with SharePoint. All right, so here are some things that can be done in SharePoint when a file is created. So that's a file in a library, or a new item is created in a list, or an existing item is modified, or a file is modified. And then you also have OneDrive, which is also, of course, OneDrive for Business is also SharePoint. So you can have this pointing to your own OneDrive for Business and triggering when a file gets created. So I can say when a file gets modified, and then I can go from there and say, what's going to happen to it when it gets modified? Like what am I going to automate? I'll go ahead. I'm going to pick something a little more interesting. I'm going to pick, let's see, when a new item is created, and just kind of show you what some of the options are in here. So I'm going to go back to, I'm just going to use this sales task. Of course, I have something, I have an automation creating the items in here. And then if I create a flow that runs when a new item is created, then it would be like one automation kicking off another one. So that's really, I'm just doing this for a demo because this is the list that I'm using in my demo. But yeah, how about I use a different list? Let me just do that so it's not confusing and so I don't break something. All right. I'm going to use my announcements list. So I just need the URL to my site, and then I'll just point to my announcements list. So this is my site right here. And I need to just paste that in here. And then list name, again, if you don't see it, you can just type, I'm just going to type announcements. And then look at this, I've got the ellipsis. So, ooh, this is cool. This is not something we ever had before in SharePoint Designer workflows. This is pretty advanced though, right? So this is, if you want to skip, this is a number field, and maximum get count if you do a filter query. So you can filter it and make sure that it's only going to run on a certain specific filtered type of item. So you would say you'd have to know the syntax of OData to be able to type what the query is going to be. That is a little bit more devy, but that would let you narrow it down to only get more specific things. Now, of course, historically, the way I've done that in SharePoint is just to use a condition in the workflow and say, when a new item is created, if this field equals this, then do this. So that's just a kind of another way to go about it, but you're sort of building your condition right into the action. All right, so that's where you can do all those extra things. And then I click the little plus down here. I'm going to scroll down, and I can add another action, or I can add a condition. So watch this. I can go, I've got user, let me go ahead and just type Office 365. There's a lot of cool stuff in here. All right. So these are all things you can do within your mailbox. As far as I can tell, this is all limited to just the mailbox of the person creating the flow. You're not like picking somebody else's mailbox to do that. So let's see, what if I go create a contact in my mailbox, and I can pick what folder my contact needs to go in. I probably only have one contacts folder. And then I'm just creating a contact. And then, so once it resolves and sees this contacts list, then it's going to let me, so as soon as I click, look at that, isn't that cool? So as soon as I click on the name field, it pops up all these extra fields for me to pick from. And those are the fields from the SharePoint new item that was created. Now watch this. I'm gonna delete this real quick and show you something else. So when a new item is created, I'm gonna say profile. I could say get my profile, get user profile, search for users. Look at that, get manager. Isn't that neat? So I can say get manager, so I can get the manager of somebody. So when a new item is created in a SharePoint list, I can go get the manager of whoever created it. So the created by email. So it says or email ID there. So you could, I think you could pick either email or like what other unique ID would it have? I think that would be the best one to pick. Maybe ID. I usually would just stick with email because that's pretty much going to be it's going to be unique, right? And you guys, again, this is an open discussion, so feel free to like say something's cool, or say you like it, or try to get different ideas of things that you want to do. All right, so get the manager of the user that created it. So I'm going to get, when a new item is created, I'm going to get their manager. Look at all these other fields though. So not only do I have the person that created this item in this announcements list, I have the picture. I have like the person's picture, their job title, and I have all this information about who modified it as well. All right, so let me go add another action, click my little plus. And then, so what I wanted to show you is, I'll go back to Office 365. And so watch this. Now when I create an action, not only is it, of course, it's letting me pick what folder, but watch this. So now when I click in here, now it has outputs from both this action, the blue one, of course, I'm pointing at my screen, the blue one from when the item was created in SharePoint, to also they're color coded in orange. So now I also have the get manager outputs. So it got the manager and it's giving this information about them, like what department they are and stuff like that. I love that that Microsoft is using this department field in here, because there's a lot of cool stuff that we can do now with conditions, like based on what department somebody's in, or filling in all these fields about a person when they're creating something. So, all right, so I'll go say, what is going to be the name of my new contact? And I can just say, I'll just say whoever created it, created by display name. And then next time I click on the display name, I'll just use created by display name again. And then let's see, email address. So it's going to be let's see. Some of these don't necessarily elicit that little pop-up box. So I guess only necessarily certain kind of fields maybe are going to pull that up. Let's see, company name. So this is not going to necessarily, doesn't have a company name, but it's got the department. So I'm going to put that in here. And then their phone numbers, etc. So I don't necessarily know any phone numbers, but so it's going to create this contact, and then it's going to, what else are we going to do? I'm going to show you how to do the approval part. It's kind of fun too. All right. Let me type Office 365 again. And then I can send an approval email. So just for fun, I was creating a contact just to kind of show you how that works. But I want to show you how to send an approval email in here as well. These are really neat. All right, so send an approval email. So what do I want the options to be when they get the email? What are the boxes going to say that they're like approve, reject, or what? So you can make up what you want the options to be. I'm just gonna, those are the most common ones that I see, approve and reject. So, okay, Maroon said, so what I'm struggling with is having to rename a file based on the number of rules in a SharePoint library. Interesting. When people usually want to do renaming of files, I just usually tell them to use metadata instead, like create metadata fields for those values instead of having the file syntax, because it's just harder to keep that up, to get users to keep doing it. But yeah, I don't necessarily know if Flow has the ability to change a file name. That's interesting. That's a good question. All right, so what are the user options going to be? And of course, you can pick data from the previous steps for a lot of these. And what is the subject? So accrual request of new announcement. And then I can put the title of the announcement in here. See, it's got my fields from the announcement. It's got the body of the announcement and when it expires. So those are all, announcements just don't have that much metadata. All right, so approval request of new announcement. And then I go down to who's it going to go to? And that's where I can say I want it to go to the manager of the person who just created the announcement. Pretty cool. All right, so I can say I want it to go to that person's manager. And then look at that, my ellipsis is going to give me even more stuff I can do. I can say announcement. I can put the title and body. I can put the body of the announcement. Let me scroll down a little bit. And anyway, I could put as many fields from it as I'd like. And I can even say what the importance is going to be. And if I want to put an attachment in here, so the attachment control, I don't know how well that's going to work with some of these types of fields. It'd be interesting to see, like, if I put the picture, like have the attachment be the picture of the person that created it or something. I'm not sure how that would work. But a lot of the times for the attachments, you can, when you're dealing with the files, like getting files and adding files and things, you actually have a field in here called content. So it's the actual file content. So it's the file itself. And so you could put that as the attachment. So that's how you can use different services that like Dropbox and OneDrive and stuff to be able to send your file, like actually send it as an attachment in an email. And that's one of those things that people have wanted to do in SharePoint designer workflows for a long time too, is actually put something as an attachment. So that's huge. All right, and then what's the attachment content? And that's where you'd put the content of the file that you're attaching. All right, so now that I've sent the approval email, and I can kind of collapse and expand these too. So I can collapse it down just by clicking the header of it. So now I can do a condition. All right, so what condition? I'm going to have an output for that. The selected option. So that's going to be what they select in the email that they receive asking if they want to approve or reject it. So the selected option is equal to, and then I'm just going to type approve in here. If it's equal to approve, then what? Ooh, I even have this advanced mode where I can, ooh, that's very fancy, where I can edit my condition sort of syntax there. All right, so if it equals approve, if yes, then do what? If no, what? So if they do approve it, then what do I want to do? Let's see, create. Maybe I can go create an announcement in a whole different SharePoint list. So let's see, I'll just type SharePoint right here. It's one of those things that we get a lot in SharePoint is people wanting to move data across multiple sites and have data like move from site to site. So this announcement might be a good example. Now, of course, in this example, this might be a case where you could use, if you wanted to have announcements showing on a different site, you could just use the content search web part to show, you know, roll up the announcements from multiple sites. So just kind of think about this just as an example of creating a new announcement in a completely different site in there. All right, so I'm going to create an item. Let's see. Create item. All right, and then I have to pick my site. So I'm going to go up a level to, let's see. Oh yeah, Maroon, you're dealing with a compliance department. Those guys are a pain, aren't they? Can we use Microsoft Flow that creates a workflow to take information from a SharePoint list and use that in a SharePoint calendar in another site? Yes. So that's almost exactly what I'm doing, except so I can create an announcement and I can create a calendar or whatever I want to do. So let me go see what my site contents are in here, and I'm going to go to the top level of where these departments are, and I want to say, like, somebody's creating an announcement in a subsite and I want it to create announcement and or a calendar, like you said, in another site. So I'm going to just create this real quick. I'm going to create this as, I'll just call it announcements. That's nice and easy. And then I'll create another one and call it, just call it calendar. Okay, add an app. So this is like my top level department site. So this is where, like, you know, it's a different site. I was in my subsite of sales and marketing before. All right, calendar. Now, of course, you can use, in calendars, you can use overlays. Remember that? You can use overlays to actually display calendars from subsites. But in this case, maybe you don't want to give people permissions to the content in that subsite. So that would be a good situation where you'd want to actually create a whole copy of it in the other site. Okay, so here's my URL, Contoso/departments. That's what I need. And I'm going to put it in here. And I'll say, I'll create an announcement. I'll say list name announcements. And okay, so what do I want the title of the announcement to be? It's just going to be the same exact thing as the title of what the announcement was in the other list, and the body is going to be the same. And let me scroll down a little. And expires is going to be the same. All right, so it's just going to have those same 3 fields in it, and those are the only 3 fields that it's prompting me to fill in. All right, and then I'm going to add another action, and just for fun, I'm going to do the, you know, add it to a calendar, like you said. Oh, now I don't want to do this. Okay, this is a little funky. So I clicked add an action down here. It was in the middle of the condition, but I don't want to add an action like sort of floating in here, you know, whether it gets approved or not. I really want to add one still in this same little tree structure. I want to add it in here only if yes. So then I'll just say create and create list item in SharePoint. SharePoint, come on, SharePoint. So many things I can create. Look at that. It's just so much. Create item. And then my site URL, I've still got that in my clipboard. And I've got, this one's going to be calendar. I just called it calendar. I like the way you can pick a field from your list to dynamically have the list name in there. So for example, if I had an announcement where I had a field called, I don't know, a field called announcement list or something like that, or like type of announcement list. So when I'm creating the announcement in the subsite, I could fill in like sort of, I guess, like a category. And then maybe at the top level site, I have various different calendars or announcement lists. And I can make it so that like the categories they can pick from match the names of the actual different lists in the other site. So depending on what category they pick, this little list name can dynamically put it in the right list. Ooh. So yeah, Mike Canati said, with everything in SharePoint just basically being a list under the hood, there's a ton you can do with this. Oh yeah, and the fact that you can tap into web services is huge. All right, so what's going to be the name of my calendar item? I can make it be the same as what the title of the announcement was. And I can say, like, when's it going to start? Now that's a good question. When is the calendar event going to start? I don't necessarily have, I have this created field from when they created the announcement, but you know, if I was creating a calendar item, I would have to have some sort of date field that they're filling in in the first item to be able to put that as the start time. So I'll just put created, and I'll just put, and it's showing you what the required fields are as well. I'll put created as both the start and the end time. And what else? Event type, location, description. So description, I can put that as the body of what the announcement was. Are y'all following me? Hopefully this isn't too confusing. And then these are other just fields that exist in the calendar. So I'm not going to worry about the category. All right, so again, if I clicked my little plus down here, then it would put it sort of outside of the condition. So now what I want to do is say, like, I could go up here and collapse these and say, if it gets rejected, what do I want to do? So I can say send an email, send email. So I'm going to send it to the person that created the item, created by email, and then subject rejected. Oops, let me scroll back up. Rejected announcement. And then I can put what the title of it was. And the body is going to be your announcement has been rejected by, and I can even put the display name from the manager right here. And now this is also something that we don't usually get in SharePoint Designer emails. Are you guys ready for this? Are you ready? Click the ellipsis and you can say who it's from. Ooh. So now I can even make it be from the email of the manager who rejected it. Yeah. All right. So, oh yeah, somebody's asking about doing a loop through a SharePoint list. Now, Fisher8104 is asking about doing a loop through a SharePoint list. Now, using SharePoint Designer workflows, the way we have to do looping is using building a dictionary and calling a web service. You can call a web service using there's a web service, the HTTP action in here can call a web service. The interface for like filling in what all the fields are is just as confusing as it is in SharePoint Designer. They're both very confusing to me. I'm not a programmer, but it's still, calling the web service is still possible. I'm just not sure how the dictionary would work, which is what allows you to like iterate through all the items. But I think it's really close. So yeah, maybe we need to have I need to like try and figure out a deep dive on that. All right, so I can say who it's from. I can CC, BCC, etc. Low importance, I don't know. And then whether it is HTML, that's a yes or a no. And if you type the wrong thing in here, or no, it's not yes or no, it's true, false. If you type the wrong thing in here, it will tell you when you try to create it. So like approve announcement is what my flow name is. So I'm basically giving it a name just at the bottom of the screen here. When I try to create it, it's going to give me where I have errors. So I can say where it says enter a valid location, I need to type true, which is a valid Boolean. Now I've gotten some errors in here that I had no idea what it was talking about. So, but yeah, they're working on it. All right. The idea is for each item in SharePoint to do something or keep looping until a particular condition is met. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So Merwan, one of the things that we do, like I wrote a blog post about this in SharePoint Designer workflows, how to basically send somebody a list of their tasks that are not completed in a certain task list. And an alert can't do, a SharePoint alert can't do it, because an alert really just sends you, it can send you a digest of information, but it's really just a list of all the things that were either added or changed in that time frame. It's not like a specific subset with a query done on it. So I wrote, so you can call the web service to be able to go loop through a task list and send one person an email that just lists all the tasks that they have still open from that task list, and just in one email, instead of having to, have every individual task do something. So that's something that we get a lot of, is somebody needing to have a list of something in an email. what are some other things that you guys like to do with looping? If you do looping in your workflows, like shout it out in the chat window in the discussion. So, yep. All right. So I created my flow. I can click done. And now I can click manage here. So now this is where I can see all the flows I've created. I can delete one. I can see information about it. This is one that I created last night, and I did multiple things, trying out all kinds of different stuff, trying to, you know, so I broke it a few times and just did stuff that was wrong, and it failed a few times. So, but then I got it working. Anyway, I was just kind of playing around with it, just trying different stuff. So that's the one, and that's where you can go to information. But I believe that the thing about flows is that they are for the individual. So I don't think that I have a way to go to a SharePoint list and see somehow what flows have been created that use that list, because each individual is just going to have my flows. All right, so now I'm going to approve my announcement. I can pause it. I can turn it off if I want to, or I can edit it if I want to, but I'm going to go ahead and go down to that subsite and create my announcement. So I'll go down to sales and marketing. Yeah, how do you share a flow with someone else? That's a great question, Carlos. That's definitely going to be important, especially when you have consultants or contractors going in and building something, and then they're gone, and then later on somebody else needs to be able to go fix it, and then it's just running and nobody knows kind of how to go fix what it's doing. Or yeah, or you need to have an intervention and go in there and fix someone's workflow that they did incorrectly, which that never happens, right? All right, let's see. Okay, so here's my announcement list. So this is the one, I think this is the one that I created my workflow off of. So I'll do a new announcement. And, oh good, thanks, Marlon. He said that's not at the moment, but it is one of the things that they are working on for a future release. Okay, so fun picnic happening. This is the info about a fun picnic. And let's see if I can, I chose HTML and I chose yes. So let's see if it like brings across the colors and the bold. Wait, blue. There we go. And it would be interesting if I stuck an image in there or something. I'm not going to try and break it just yet. That's what I was doing last night when I was playing with it. I was just trying all kinds of crazy stuff to see what would happen. All right, and when is it going to expire? There we go, save. All right, now this should trigger my flow. So so the flow happened, and let's go back to my list of flows. I'm just gonna like refresh this. Wow, I've only got 7 minutes left. I managed to eat up an entire hour every time, don't I? Okay, so let's go see what's going on. I can go to information, and I can see that it started running 9 seconds ago, so it's running. And so what was the first thing that it was supposed to do? It was supposed to go send an email to the manager to approve it. So let's see, what was that manager's name? Let me see. Is it, I've got all these little fake users in Office 365. Let's see. Her name was Janet Shore, S-C-H-O-R-R. All right, I'm going to open this in a different browser so that I get prompted. Let's see. This M-O-D. Oh, what is that thing called? Oh, the email did come in. I can see it in on my other computer, and the colors of it did go in through there. All right, so hold on. You just got to get the URL to that thing. MOD 78083. Okay. Sorry about that. Okay, now I go to log in as Janet Shore. All right, sign in with the different accounts. I like the way Microsoft has fixed this, by the way. It used to be very awkward when you're trying to log into different accounts in here, but it's much more smooth now. It just pops you out and then prompts you again instead of having to like clear the cache and all this weird stuff. Janet S. at MOD. Crap. Keep forgetting what the name of my. Okay. We're going to log in and see the, oh, sorry, I got on Microsoft. We're going to log in and see the email that she gets and how pretty it is, her little approval email. Come on, Janet S. No, it's in there because I just can see it on my other computer. Okay, all right, so now I'm in Office 365. I'll get to go to her email. There's Janet's little picture. I love these little fake tenants. They're so fun. Okay, here, approval request of new announcement. Fun picnic happening. Request for your input. So then it's got approve or reject. Isn't that beautiful? So she will go ahead and approve it. And I'll have to do another one and reject it. Thanks, your response approve has been successfully registered. So then what was it supposed to do next? It was supposed to go create an item in a list and create a calendar. So now let's go back up to that other site and check those. All right, I'm just going to go to site contents real quick. And look, one item, woohoo! One item in the announcements and one item in the calendar. Yay, it worked. Fun picnic happening. And now I can see that it's going to have all the values in it that she entered. It's even got the, HTML value correctly in the body there. And let's go look at the calendar events. And see, look at that. It got created for today because I put that, put the create date as today, but there's the description. Okay, and so what else did I have going on after? So the two items get created, and then I had a different thing happening if it gets rejected. So let's go reject one real quick. And let me just open this in a new window and go reject one. Because that one was supposed to send a rejection email, right? Let's see. Oh, you can click on it and see execution history, he said. Okay, we'll go do that too. All right, I'll go back to my, sorry, I don't have all these lists that I'm creating all nice and pretty in the quick launch. Okay, here's my announcements list, and I'll go create one and reject it. So new announcement. Exciting board meeting. This. I cracked myself up. Let's go pick an expiration date. Right now there isn't the ability to do, like, theoretically, maybe I could say if it's expired, automatically reject it too and have that be another condition. But there is only, you can only do one condition as of right now in flows. Correct me if I'm wrong. Yeah, so I'll have to do another power hour. Okay, so there's my board meeting, and then you heard the little notification letting me know that I got another email as Janet here. So here's my request for input, and I'm just gonna, people love this. Lazy approval, this is huge, right? Lazy approval. So I can go ahead and click reject, and I rejected it. And again, that's what's called, it's called lazy approval because they didn't have to go to SharePoint. Also, another way people do lazy approval is they hit respond and they just type the word approve or something. But to me, that's even better, that they don't even have to click respond. They just click a button and it does it. Okay, so let's go back over to the calendar and see. I'm just going to refresh this. And of course, it's not going to have created the item. It's going to have sent this chick a email saying that it was rejected. So I'll go to her mail. All right, rejected announcement. Your announcement has been rejected by Janet Shore. And then when I hit reply, see, it even shows that it's from her. So when I hit reply to the rejection, it's to her. So this is huge because SharePoint didn't have that. SharePoint, if you replied, it was just like this generic SharePoint email address that all the workflows had. So this is really nice to be able to actually have people's names in there. And then you can even do flows on having to do with somebody replying to an email as well, because it can look at your mailbox. So I'll go ahead and say, go back to, all right. Thanks, everybody. I really appreciate all the feedback in the discussion today, and for the, being represented, and the product group being represented here in the chat. And that was a really fun demo to do. I'm looking forward to building lots of Microsoft flows myself, and starting to play more with Power Apps and getting those all integrated, and looking forward to just the continuous improvements that you guys are doing. And thanks everybody for coming today. Of course, I'm not sure what the topic's going to be next week. I always make that up as I go, but I'll keep an eye out in Slack. You can install the app on your computer, and you can get a pop-up when I put information there. Be on the lookout for me to put out another poll for you guys to vote on what you want the topic to be. So I will see you guys next week. Thanks for coming.